Recording. Okay. Hello, I'm Jennifer Lahl. For those of you who don't know me, I'm the president of the Center for Bioethics and Culture based in the San Francisco Bay Area. And tonight I have the pleasure of speaking with Trey Cox. And I came to know of Trey and the loss of his wife just this past weekend. And through social media, I was able to find the GoFundMe account and read his wife Lydia's obituary. And I actually even stumbled on a TikTok video that you made, Trey, speaking a little bit about your wife and her bucket list. But anyway, I'm just really glad that you are here to speak with me and tell me your story. And I know that we don't agree on all things, which is fine. It's a big world. We live in a world where I'm married to a man for 36 years and we don't agree on all things. So
as you shouldn't. That wouldn't be normal if you did.
Exactly. So. But we both agree that we want women and children to be safe.
Absolutely.
And anyway, so welcome, Trey. And why don't you tell me a little bit about your wife? And you mentioned briefly about her otherwise healthy pregnancies and her desire to be a surrogate. So why don't you just start with that part of your story?
She had 4 extremely healthy, and when I use the term rock star, I mean rock star. I mean 2 pushes and she's ready to get out of there, you know. All healthy, no issues, anything like that. And she also was a continuous advocate for not only women's rights, but also a lot of the issues that we face, as far as there's not enough research done medically as far as how things affect women versus men. Unfortunately, there's a lot of studies that go on that are based mainly off of how men react to them, and then they just assume women are going to react the same way. And that never set her right. But she was, like I said, huge activist. But she came to me. We were driving to West Virginia, and we were in the middle of some just terrible Tennessee traffic. I mean, terrible. I could barely keep, that van that we both hated on the road. And she said, I think I want to be a surrogate. And I about ran off the road. I'm like, are you kidding me? What? We have a van full of these, kids. But she did so well that she wanted to pass this thing on to someone else. She wanted to give this gift to somebody. And she was such a brilliant person. She did tons of research. The thing that ended up killing her, she was actually aware of. So she did her research. And I hope it's okay if I just go through from start to finish.
Yeah, I might wave my hand and ask a little question. Real quick, when you were driving in the car and she made this announcement that she wanted to be a surrogate, was that like a year ago? Was that 5 years ago? I mean,
that was 2019.
Okay.
It was February of 2019 is when that happened. We go to a ski resort in West Virginia once a year, and we were on our way up there. But I tell you, when she told me, it was kind of shocking at first. I think because maybe I was so just uninformed about the whole process, in general. But she was so passionate about it, and I had my concerns, but she was always just so smart that when she presented her case, I just kind of took it at that face value.
Concerns. You said you had your concerns. Do you remember?
Well, just general health concerns, as far as just the whole Newton's law type deal. You never know. And I thought that at first I was just a little unsure about it, but when she spoke, she was so passionate, and not in a just uneducated, not knowing what you're talking about. I mean, she put the work in, she put the research in, and she wanted to do this. And so I supported her with it.
And then how did she, make that move to actually becoming a surrogate? Did she find an agency to work with?
It was an agency, and it was a pretty heavy vetting process. It took a bit. She and she was a very good candidate. At her time of passing, she was 33, and that was July 18th of this year.
So when you say she was a good candidate, was that just because she was young and healthy? Good
young, had these her pregnancies. They look at all of your records through your previous pregnancies. Did you have any blood pressure issues, anything like this? Like, they look at all of it. What's your weight like, as far as being overweight, this and that. Like, they take a whole lot into account. And it was a pretty intense process, as far as, like I said, the vetting process, until they they approved her to do it.
And then was the agency you live in Alabama? That's
Correct.
That's public. So was the agency a local agency? Did she work with local doctors?
No, it wasn't. Now, once she was pregnant, then her position here was they wanted us to be at the hospital down here that had the best care for NICU, wherever the best infant care was, that's where they wanted us to be. So it was a different hospital than the one that she had for the other 4 pregnancies, but that was kind of a part of the thing. But no, they were not located locally.
And was that something that the clinic wanted you to do, go to that hospital, or was that something that intended parents that she was having the baby for? When you say they wanted her,
it was a clinic thing. They take a look at the hospitals that are nearby, and they look at who has the best facilities, as far as, like I said, NICU, these things and that. And whoever has the most advanced facility, that's where they want you to go to.
Yeah.
Which wasn't a problem. But it wasn't, at no point was it like a forceful situation. It was like, if you're not comfortable with this, we can figure something else out, but this is just what we think is best. And they always made sure to keep her opinions in mind with it.
And then, so once she was approved and through the vetting process, how much longer than it, because in my experience talking with surrogates, then sometimes it takes a while to like match you with a couple or a person that you're going to carry. And correct me if I'm wrong, I am assuming that Lydia was carrying the intended parent's baby. She was not genetically connected.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. There was
And was it a commercial surrogacy or an altruistic one? So she was being paid, compensated, or
yes,
not?
there was compensation. Yes,
Okay.
there was compensation.
So we would just, in the business, we would call that a commercial gestational surrogacy. So
yes, I'm not.
Yeah.
I didn't know those terms.
Yeah. No, that's okay. Because
yeah, it was never at any point the driving force, but yes, there was compensation.
Yeah. And so was she involved in picking, like, did she say, I want to help this kind of a couple or that kind of couple? Or
it was a very cool process. They made me, before we even started seeing couples, I was a huge part of the vetting process as well. My records, my history, medical and otherwise, were just as much put under scrutiny as hers were. But the vetting process takes a while, but then it wasn't that long after that we started getting matches. And the way it worked was, they would say, we think you might be interested in this couple, and they would send that couple the same message. And this is stateside, overseas, wherever, and each couple gets to look at the other's profile and see how they feel about them. And if both couples agree, then you do like a FaceTime or a Zoom and see how you feel. And if both parties are comfortable, then you kind of go from there. So that's how it was. We the first couple couples a couple couples that we were sent. There really wasn't. It didn't seem like a good fit, and we were close to kind of giving up when we got the match that we got, and
it wasn't a good fit on both sides, or just
I don't know if it wasn't a good fit on their side, but it wasn't a
okay.
good fit on our side.
Yeah.
She had very, very specific reasons for doing this, and if anything didn't feel right to her, then she wouldn't do it.
And do you feel comfortable telling us what those specific, like I've talked to surrogates who only want to help a gay couple, because if not, this gay couple couldn't have a baby, or they only want to help a couple that's been trying for years and have
they ask you those questions. They say, are you, as far as gay, interracial, things like this, and she wanted anybody. Those things didn't matter. But a lot of times, and I talk like I know something about this, but there's a difference in a couple that truly deserve to be a parent. They have that thing in them that just wants to love this child and grow them and be a parent and have that love that they just unfortunately naturally can't have. And then sometimes you have your cases where people just want a kid, and it's a lot easier than you might think to tell the difference between those people. So that's what we were looking for. We were looking for that couple that you just knew, you just knew. And not to say that the couple that we went with was not the only couple out there. It was just the first couple that got sent to us that we felt that connection with. And
I'm sorry, do you mind me asking, and any question I ask you don't want to answer, you can just say I don't want to answer that, or I don't want to talk about that, but were they a US couple, or were you ultimately matched with an international couple?
We were matched with a US couple.
So okay, so you didn't have that kind of different countries. In some surrogates, they can't even communicate with the family because they don't speak the same language.
Well, we we had a couple international prospects sent to us, and the international side of it wasn't the issue. It was just, you look at the profile and you look for those, what I call those caring words, and I hate if anything that I say comes off as insensitive, because I don't know the mind and the heart of everybody out there. But sometimes you feel a certain thing about a certain person, Yeah. And I hope the couples, there was only 2 other couples that were sent to us before we found this one, and I honestly I hope they absolutely got what they needed.
Yeah. Okay, so you guys found the couple. They liked you, you liked them, you felt that it was a good fit, and then so she Lydia went through the embryo transfer, all the medications she had to take that surrogates have to take to get ready for that embryo transfer. And did they transfer just one embryo? Did they transfer a couple, or was it successful the first time?
It was successful the first time. It happened on a Tuesday, and we had a positive test the next Sunday.
Wow.
Yeah. Lydia, she was just, if you looked at her wrong, she got pregnant. So she just it other than the.
And did she know? I mean, it's again, it's public because I found out, so I'm going to say this. She had a little boy. So did they know in advance that they were going to have a boy? Because sometimes they test the embryo and they know it's a boy embryo. Or
no, it was
surprise.
Right. Like it was. We didn't even know till that day, actually. So it was kept a surprise from us as well. So.
And so the 9 months she was pregnant as a surrogate, it was uneventful like her other pregnancies. She felt good. She wasn't sick. She
a little more lethargic than normal. But it was also, like I said, it was 3 years since her last pregnancy when she actually started having, being pregnant. But she had stopped teaching and had been a stay-at-home mom for the past 2 years due to my schedule. And she just did her thing. I mean, so it wasn't a particularly hard pregnancy. She just had, a little more heartburn or a little bit more fatigue. It was just, a little bit. BP was always good at every visit. All those things were good, a little bit of feet swelling at the end, but there was nothing that was just like stand out at you.
And then, so during the pregnancy, since it was a US couple, did you just kind of keep in touch through FaceTime and, texting?
We did, and without, going into too much detail, the moment that we saw their profile, there was something about this couple that just, it like I said, because we were about to leave the program, not because of anything the agency had done or anything like that, but it was just like, okay, like we went through the couple profiles and then we read this profile, and it was so beautiful. So then we went to, like I said, the next process where we did the Zoom call, and from the moment we met these people, it just transcended to family so quickly. Some of the most precious people I think have ever been on this planet and continue to be. So it became not just a FaceTime here and there type of thing, but it was a daily text. It was FaceTime. It was a couple visits where they flew down here and met the entire family, relationships with my parents. I mean, it grew into a really beautiful thing.
And then, so because her other pregnancies, you said, were, I'm assuming, vaginal deliveries, because you just talked about two
Correct.
push. So she never had a C-section. Was she planning to just deliver this baby the same way too? Or?
Yes, she didn't use any type of all of her pregnancies. I mean, all of her deliveries were natural. They're all natural. So it was going to be the same very impressive song and dance this time as well.
And did the intended parents, were they going to try to be there? Like, were you like, as soon as she goes into labor, we'll call you so you can.
Oh yeah,
and that was giving details. Did they have to like drive or fly, or did they come a few days before she was even due and just kind of hang out?
They were here about 3 weeks prior, actually.
Okay, that's
about 3 weeks prior.
They want to be there, and you don't know
right.
when
They were 3 weeks prior, and they were absolutely going to be in the room and 100% a part of the process.
So tell me about when she went into labor. How that day all shake out? Were you home? Were you working?
I'm home. It's the effects of these things, they kind of hit you a little bit differently at times, as far as processing it. But at 4:30 in the morning, we both woke up, and because I guess maybe both of us were starting to maybe feel our age a little bit. You gotta wake up late at night sometimes. So we both woke up, and she said, I think my water broke. And she said, I'm not sure, but I think it broke. Well, I knew. I was like, oh yes, it's time. I feel it. We're done. So I go to my side of the bed, get shoes on. We're ready to go. And I'm getting ready to call, the parents. And then she came into the doorway between our bedroom and the bathroom, and she started seizing, and then she collapsed onto the bed, and I had no idea what was going on, but I could recognize that she was seizing, so I turned her on to her side and called 911, and she wouldn't stop. And on the 911 call, they were, you know, saying, "You have dogs?" I'm like, "Yes, I'm going out." And I mean, I got one dog that's 145 pounds. I mean, it's a lot of dogs, you know. So then she sees it on the bed, and I'm trying to get that done. So I come back, and I was able to actually get her. Well, I mean, I wasn't, but she did. She stopped um, seizing so violently, and she didn't know who I was. Um, she was scared. Um, and then the EMTs,
So
they came in.
you had called the 911.
Yes.
And
Well, I
was,
mean, I mean, when something like that happens, you know, you kind of have two options, and one is to, you know, not react properly, and the other is, you know, to react. And so when, you know, you see your wife there, you got to kind of
and
react.
we were texting yesterday. You told me, I think your mom's a nurse.
Yes,
Yeah, so you
yes.
sort of
She
had
only
that,
worked.
you were raised by a nurse, you sort of knew
Correct,
we need
correct.
help. Yeah.
I was, yeah, correct. So they showed up, and they were you know, asking her questions as far as, you know, do you know how old you are, this and that, and she couldn't answer them. One of her biggest things in her pregnancies is she did not like IVs. She didn't like it. She said, you know, if it looks like I'm gonna need one, they can put one in then. But, you know, she was very adamant about that. So they go to start putting the IV in, and she didn't really know what was going on, but that kind of registered. So I had to just kind of get next to her on the bed, and while they were working on her, and just be like, you know, honey, this isn't the way that we planned it. Like this is something different. Like I just need, just please just, you know, let them help, let them help. And you know, she would, you know, it hurts and this and that. And you know, got her on the gurney, got onto the ambulance. Um, sorry if I'm not looking at the camera enough. It's
No,
just,
it's
this
okay.
is a,
And were you able to go in the ambulance with her? So you had to follow in the car? Yeah. And
yeah, I followed in the car, and
and had you made contact yet with the intended parents? Did they know? So they knew what was going on. Her doctor had already knew that, you know, meet us at the hospital, we're on our way.
I'm I'm assuming so, as far as the doctor, but
Yeah, the
yes,
hospital.
as soon as I got off the phone with the parents to be, I
Mhm.
mean, I'm sorry, with the EMTs, I contacted the parents to be, because like I said, we had developed such a close relationship, and they were there before I was. Um and So as I followed them, they stopped at stop signs, they stopped at red lights. And I could look in the back of the ambulance, and I could see that her head was up, and I could see that she was looking left and right, and she was talking. And so we got to the hospital, and the intended parents, they were there, like I said, and we ran in, and the EMT who was, you know, in the ambulance, they came through the double doors first and said, you know, she was doing much better. She was being responsive. She was answering questions. You know, she was doing a lot better. And then, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 minutes later, um, one of the doctors came in and said that she had started seizing again, and they were going to have to go into an emergency C-section. And that was all the information I was given
And so
for that period of time.
you're just in a waiting room then at that point, because you can't.
They put me and the two parents into an actual labor and delivery room, and that's where we stayed until, well, throughout it all. And when they would come in, they would get updates on the baby, which I was very thankful for.
And they were saying that the baby was good and healthy and
Well, the updates at first weren't necessarily good,
okay.
but they were just updates. And the father to be, because the mother to be, she was on the floor with me. And you know, he would ask like, okay, but what about her? Like, what about her? And we just never, we couldn't get any updates. And it had nothing to do with the staff being incompetent at all. It was a point in the shifts where the night shift is going home and day shift takes over. Neither shift, nobody left. It was 2 shifts. It was a lot of doctors. And every time they would come in, they would say that, you know, that she had lost a lot of blood. And that they had been doing like CPR for almost 15 minutes. Yet I knew.
Yeah.
She lost something like 7 quarts of blood, something like that. I mean, something crazy. And that's when they came in. The second to last time they came in, she came in and the doctor sat on the couch, chair, whatever. And I mean, I've seen enough to know that's not a good sign. And she explained that from what they had gathered at that point, that it appeared to be an amniotic fluid embolism. And she explained it to me.
Mhm.
And that they were trying to put blood back in her. And as I'm sure you know, when it comes to that particular, you know, like I said, the amniotic fluid embolism, there's super high mortality rate. And unfortunately, the ones that do survive are neurologically never the same. It wasn't long after that. And I felt it when it happened. I felt it. And then the whole crew came in there and everybody's sniffling. You know, the majority of the staff that worked on her that night are actually still in therapy now because of what happened. But the thing, and I know you and I talked about this as well, is that even though I'm not anti-surrogacy, I think that, as she did, that there is not enough research done. There's just not. There's not enough done. There's not enough prevention research done. There's way too much research that's not done with women in mind. She, at 33, whether it was because, I mean, 33 is not old, but she was under the care, they put her as high risk, even though she had no health issues, no blood pressure. I guess maybe just because of being 33, she was at high risk. So she was seeing a high risk doctor. There was nothing high risk about the appointments. It was all, here are the generic A, B, C, D, E boxes that should be checked off just on a regular, you know, gyno visit for a pregnant woman. And that was it.
Yeah.
And that was it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I hear you. You're not anti-surrogacy. We would agree we're anti-women being harmed. You know, we want, you know, women to be protected, and that comes from having information, and you have information because you've done research and you've done studies and you understand what you're dealing with. So then, I mean, why do we tell people not to smoke now? Because we've done years and years of research on, you know, the risks and harms of. eating too much fast food or whatever. But yeah, yeah, and I would agree that women are often sometimes on the low end of the totem pole as far as research dollars going into studying things that affect women. But so you're in this room, you're with the mom and the dad, you're alone. You've just been given this news that you never, ever wanted to ever hear. What should have been a joyous occasion, you know, giving this family that you wanted to help, your wife wanted to help, become parents, have a baby. I mean, how did you all sort of navigate the next, you know, moments, days, weeks, months?
That
I mean, it's more
I,
than bittersweet. It's more than bittersweet.
I can tell you what happened in those moments, but to try to tell you that I know anything about how to navigate this, I don't. I have no idea. But after it happened, I just I lost it. I just absolutely lost it. I had already been somewhat losing it, but there are very few people that the universe puts in this world that were as special as she was. But not only that, but the relationship and bond that she and I had is one, from what I'm told, is not very common. When I lost her that day, I lost what we used to call each other's orange hat. She had a master's in Spanish, and like I said, way smarter than me in every aspect. But there was a saying that being two people being a part of a whole. So that half was ripped that day. And then not only was that happening, but concern for the health of the baby, you know, because I'd spent months talking to him in the belly, playing him music that I thought he'd like, and you know, messing with the parents to be and be like, I'm gonna play him a lot of rock and roll. Y'all better get ready. And there was a lot of moments like that. And the idea of losing both of them, it just, so for a while after I first got the news, I lost it. I did. But then it was, how is he? How, you know, is he okay? And once again, without going into too many personal details, he is beautiful. He's healthy. He's active. Because he was in a bad spot for a minute with what she was going through. But I'm
Can you say, or you maybe you don't want to say, which is fine, like what kind of problems did he have as a result of what happened?
well, he was still, before they could get him out, he was still in the womb for about 15 minutes, from as far as I remember. Once again, the details from that day are kind of spotty to me in some ways. But from what I gathered, he was without oxygen because she was for a good little bit of time. So when he came out, he was once they tubed him, his heart rate came up pretty quickly, but he just wasn't very responsive. But by the time I left the hospital, he had started to show some fight. And it was, once again, details are spotty, but from what I remember, I think it was about a week and a half he was in NICU, and he was doing great.
Yeah.
So the main thing that I wanted this conversation between you and I to hopefully accomplish is knowledge. Learning about this process, being educated about it. And the thing that I hope for, and Lydia always did too, is there could be a way that what happened could have been prevented. And I don't know how, but I don't think there's enough people looking at it. You know, if this is something that we're going to do, because you and I talk the numbers, you know, we talk the numbers. And so while I'm not anti-surrogacy, if we are going to have this, which, like I said, which I do agree with, I want these women that are signing on to this. I'm sorry, 1 second. That's my alarm to brush teeth, because if I don't have an alarm to do that, then everybody has funky breath. But if there's not, there's got to be more information on this. The research has got to be done. If there's a difference between a regular pregnancy and a surrogate pregnancy, then what are those? Are they at higher risk than normal? Are we looking at that? You know, and I don't think we are.
Well, we are, but not to the level that makes me satisfied. There have been 2 very important studies that have been done on surrogate mothers. So we do know that they are higher risk pregnancies than the woman's own pregnancy. That is in the medical literature, but we need, you know, I mean, your wife is the 2nd surrogate that I've heard of now. Michelle Reeves in California died last year in a surrogate pregnancy because of an amniotic fluid embolism. So that makes me wonder, is a surrogate pregnancy, we know it's at higher risk for other things, which might be why they wanted your wife to be treated as a high risk pregnancy, even though, like you said, she was young and otherwise healthy.
Right.
You know, so that makes me wonder, that's an area, but, you know, without, you know, I don't want to sound too data driven here, but, you know, the cause of death on your wife's death certificate probably lists amniotic fluid embolism as a cause of death. However, the death certificate doesn't say anything that she was a surrogate pregnancy. So when you wanted to go, if we wanted to go back and like look at all the women in the last 5 or 10 years that died of amniotic fluid embolism, we wouldn't have that important data point. Was this their own child pregnancy or was this a surrogate pregnancy?
Now, it actually was included in ours.
Oh, it was?
Yes.
I stand corrected then.
Because it, you know, it takes a while for those things to get in.
Sure.
So it came in not long ago, the full report, and I read the full report, and it actually was documented in that report that it was a surrogate pregnancy.
And was that in the autopsy report?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
So there's a lot of women, yeah. I mean, I would have to, that's new information, that's helpful information, because that might be a way that we could better study this particular risk factor, you know, amniotic fluid embolism in surrogate mothers. But yeah, it's sad because this is a growing industry. More and more, you know, agencies are out and about, and more people are looking at surrogacy as an option to build their family, have their children. And, you know, it was kind of like, I always sometimes compare it to the early tobacco industry, you know, when big tobacco, everywhere was cigarettes. And then we did the studies, and then it was like, well, no, you can't have a cigarette, and no, you're too young, and you can't have a cigarette here, and you can't buy cigarettes there, and you can't smoke them here. And
well, the thing, as far as the difference for me in that, is that I do think that there's a way for surrogacy to be a really great and beautiful thing, and I believe that because I've witnessed it. Now, what I've went through is terrible. It's tragic. It's horrible. You know, I have panic attacks. I have all these issues now. But it's been terrible. But I don't want, I guess I see how important it was to her and how great it's been to these people that are now in my lives forever. Like, did this go horribly wrong? Yes, it did. Were there still good intentions behind it? Yes, absolutely. The purest of intentions. Do we need more research about this? Yeah, we do. Yeah, we do.
I know you can't imagine, or maybe you can because you knew your wife like, your soulmate, but do you think she would have not done this if she'd known that she might have risked her, if she did risk her life?
She knew that she knew that she was. When I said that she was aware, and she was the only one out of any of us that had read up on it, but she was absolutely aware of what killed her.
Yeah.
She was aware of it. Like I said, my wife didn't take a step to the left without doing her research as far as what was over there. And so she knew, because we talked about it. And I told her, I said, honey, I said, I'm worried about, because you just never know. And she went over it with me step by step, this by this, and she said, I know what I'm doing. I know the risks. It's worth it to me to do this for somebody else. And she knew it. So she knew.
And what do you think, because the children are part of this equation, this little boy, your own children, Lydia's children. I mean, this little boy is going to grow up knowing, basically the price Lydia paid for him, to be born. Your children, they're going to know that their mom, they lost their mom, just sort of for this good over here. I mean, how do you navigate? How do you make sense of all that? And
well, you don't make sense of it. There is no making sense of it. The kids were very much involved in this process. We bought them books. We talked about it. The parents, like I said, they traveled down here a couple of different times. They were very familiar with them. They knew what we were doing. Now, is this going to have some issues further on down the road when they grow up and can kind of process? Because you can't process stuff like this fully when you're 6, 8 years old. You just can't. It will, but the only thing that I can say is that they were very much a part of this process with us. And I have no idea how I'm going to navigate it in the future. I have none. I mean, I have a great support group. I have great friends. I have great family, but it's just me and 5 boys here. Thankfully, I've been able to acquire custody of the 14-year-old that she had when I met her. I have the 8 and the 6-year-old. So I have everybody here, but as far as how we navigate, I mean, it's a day-to-day thing.
yeah.
So I can't really answer that question very well, unfortunately. And I'm sorry. I won't know how they're going to react to that until they get old enough to be able to process fully what's happened.
Yeah.
So, I'll figure it out then, I guess.
And the same with the little boy that she gave birth to. He'll have to figure that out as part of his story too, on how he came to be in this world.
I've talked about this with several other people before, since this has happened, about how, what he might think when he grows older, and how that could make him, feel emotionally. And people have asked me also, what Lydia would do, any differently. I've asked myself that. I've had conversation after conversation with her in this closet. I'm in her closet right now. This is where I made her a little art desk in here, and this is where I come. But she'd be proud of what she did. She would be. I know it. I know it. So, and that's all I can go off of.
Yeah.
It is what it is at this point. So I just have to, she absolutely had 0 doubts in her head that this is what she wanted to do. And trust me, as her husband, I can tell you, when she was that sure about something, you just needed to leave it alone. You weren't going to change her mind. but she was comfortable in it,
Yeah.
and I believe that she's still comfortable now.
And did you feel that, the agency that you worked with, and did you feel that they took care of you during this time?
This
And
this particular agency, absolutely,
did your wife
absolutely.
did she have a life insurance policy part of her contract?
Yes,
Sometimes that's not included in
yes,
all surrogate contracts.
it is.
So,
Yes, it was. They were very mindful throughout the entire process about her feelings about this, her feelings about that. If there was something that Lydia didn't agree with, all she had to do was email them, and they were on the spot making sure it got handled. And then after all this happened, I mean, 7 or 8 of them, something like that, flew down here.
wow.
Um, to make sure that they were here for the memorial. And one of the main players, and I've heard personally from the head guy in this company, like the head, the doctors that were involved, and I don't mean just basic wish you well messages. I mean phone calls, the throughout this entire the insurance policy, all these type of things, death certificates, all this type of stuff. This one woman that works at this agency has spearheaded the entire thing, and they have been brilliant. They have been brilliant. So I'm very, as far as I'm concerned, their family as well.
Well, I'm glad you had that experience. It's not always the case,
And I totally understand that.
when things go bad, because but that's just because we're all human beings, and there's some that are better than others.
Right.
Some bad actors and some that are not as bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what can we do for you? All the people that are going to be listening to this, and will, what do you need? Do you need anything from? I mean, people have been incredibly generous with your GoFundMe. So financially, it sounds like financially you've been well provided and cared for. I mean, it doesn't
They
count.
were, and it's also it's that type of thing is something that you appreciate so much, and I don't know if a lot of people who followed that GoFundMe know this, but the agency contributed a lot to that out of their pocket.
And as the skeptic and the critic, that makes me a little bit suspicious and a little bit uneasy, because they make money. They're a profit making industry. It's like if you have a car that goes bad and you crash it and you die, and the automobile industry gives you all this, but they've made money.
I totally understand that.
Cyndi Lauper said, "Money changes everything."
I get that mindset 100. The reason that makes me not, because usually that's where my head goes. Like, why are you doing this? But to me, and this is another reason why when we were talking about whether we wanted to do it on the phone or do like a Zoom call, to me, it makes all the difference in the world to see somebody face to face, to look at their eyes, their mannerisms, how they move. You can tell a lot by just those little things. And when I personally met the people from that agency, you can't fake that type of emotion. At least nobody that I've ever seen. You can't fake it. And it's not over the top. You can see it in the eyes. The eyes are the window to the soul. But as far as what I need, I don't think there is anything that I need. As far as I think that we're going to be just fine in that department. Unfortunately, like you and I have discussed, what it's 5 since 2018. Was that right?
What was
5 women
yeah,
that have died
five women
since,
that that I know of. Maybe there's more, but those are the ones I mean,
that you know of since
found out about your
2018.
case because somebody in Israel told me that your wife had died. So, I mean, this is so, but yeah, I just personally know of 5 that I've written about their stories. And I'll just tell you that's 5 too many in my book.
It's 5 too many.
Because women should not be dying in childbirth. This is the 21st century. Alabama, your state, has horrible maternal mortality rates. I mean, we are.
It does. It has terrible. But another, as far as horrible maternity rate, and issues with pregnancy, is also there's not a lot of things being done about deliveries in areas where minorities are. They're at a huge disadvantage.
Yeah.
So I don't need anything monetary. I don't need anything like that. But even if it's just those 5 families, me included, that you know of, there are 4 other families that are hurting just the way that I'm hurting, and who are confused, and who are trying to put all this together and just have moments to where you start having panic attacks, and you're shaking, and you're doing all this. It's not just me, it's all these other families. That's just the other 4 that we know of, and those are pregnancies. And now those deaths were related to surrogacy that you're speaking of,
and pregnancy related complications. So these are women that died either ready to give birth or during childbirth.
Right.
Or,
so we have that thing that needs to be looked at. We have issues in lower class areas where women aren't given the proper medical treatment, especially medical. I'm sorry, not medical, but women who are pregnant. Issues with minorities that aren't given the treatment that they need to be given. The entire way that a pregnant woman's care is handled, from what we're talking about, the surrogacy, all the way through, has got to be looked at. So if anybody that watches this wants to do anything for me, try to advocate for some moves forward as far as that's concerned.
Well, and part of my work is I'm often asked to, testify at like state hearings on new pieces of legislation around surrogacy. States that want to legalize. I meant to look up Alabama, and I didn't even look it up to see, does Alabama surrogacy legal there? Is it regulated? What are the laws? Because every state in America, unfortunately, every state has different laws on this,
right?
Which doesn't really help when you're trying to patch things together, when you've got this patchwork of one state, this is the law, and one state, that's the law. But,
right.
That might be something for you to speak to, or I'll call upon you if there's a new piece of legislation to talk to lawmakers, to consider the things that you want done before we just willy-nilly.
I would absolutely like to stay involved. It's you can't, as far as I'm concerned, you can't say that you want things to be different and then have one conversation and never do anything again. So yeah, if there's anything, feel free to absolutely pass it along to me.
Yeah, well, I am gonna look at what your own law in your own state is, because that would be a good place for you to start. Because a lot of times lawmakers will listen to people that live in their state, because you basically vote them into office or vote them out.
Yeah.
They should. And sometimes they don't act like it, but they should work for us.
They should. Those votes usually go one way down here, unfortunately, but we'll see.
Well, now you're just a busy single dad. You've got to go get teeth brushed before you put everybody down to bed. And then
I have to have alarms for teeth brushing, pull-ups. I have to have alarms for everything, because if I don't, I just I won't remember. We have, and I worked for the railroad before any of this happened, and I left early June. My parents they're real estate investors, and they wanted me to come in with them on that. So I have that too, that I'm trying to get back in. And in our school system that we're in now, the high school has one school, the elementary has one school, the first grader, he's in a different school. So it's, and then the 3-year-old, and it's a lot, while
Yeah.
also trying to,
Chief cook and bottle washer.
not a good cook, but yes, chief cook.
Well, I think we've covered a lot, and we can always have another conversation again. But I'm going to ask you to stay on, but I'm going to say goodbye and end the recording for our listeners. But thank you so much for talking with me, and my heart breaks for you. And I'm just really sorry, but I do thank you for, like you said, being willing to be part of the solution.
That's all I want.
Thank you.
Thanks.